So now let's find out if this appreciation has really come to stay, or is it just the news of the new system, the Dutch auction system? Mr. Bismarck Rewane is in a good position to explain this to us. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company. Mr. Rewane, once again, welcome to the program. Good morning.
Good morning, Eni.
So we saw the Naira appreciate yesterday, but of course we wonder if this has come to stay. We know that news moves the market, but over the coming days we would see if this auction system, the retail auction system, really is what we need and will keep the Naira on a positive trend.
Okay, let me first explain to viewers that the typical route to getting to achieving market efficiency in price in the foreign exchange market is actually one. You start with the retail Dutch auction, which means that you sell to everybody at the retail level through their banks. Then we have what they call the wholesale auction, where the banks buy, hold in a position, and distribute to their clients. And finally, there's the interbank system, where the banks and the central bank you have an auction, and everybody bids, and the highest bidder wins. Now, so we've gone back to the basic, which is a retail Dutch auction, which is cumbersome and difficult to administer, but it is transparent and is open. So what happened yesterday? The central bank sold $876 million in one day, basically to do what? To clear also the backlog and people complain that there's no demand and there's no supply. Having said that, because of the administrative costs attendant with all of these things, the market, the Naira depreciated to 1,615 Naira in the parallel market, while it was at 1595 before then. So these are early days. What will happen is that the central bank has to come out to say, one, this is how many times we are going to have the auction. Maybe you should say twice a week, once a week. People can then plan. When people now plan, then they will now know that this price at which will bid, and next time it's going to happen is in 2 weeks' time, and prepare for it. Secondly, we must understand that the waiver on duty waiver and for the products, sugar, wheat, and others, has kicked in on the 1st of August. But for you to achieve it, you must open the LCs right now. So the demand for foreign exchange is a bit exaggerated because of, one, the people rushing to buy forex to import goods. Two, this is summertime. People are going on holidays. And thirdly, schools are resuming. Labor Day in the US is the first Monday in September, which is 3 weeks from today. So you can imagine that the seasonal effect of demand is having an impact. But generally speaking, at 1,615, we expect that by today or tomorrow, the Naira should appreciate to about 1590 and will stay at those levels for the next 1 month. So does it have an effect on commodity prices? Not really, because the commodity prices, the people buying forex for commodities have actually been buying in an average between 1,500 and 1,600. Therefore, there's no cause for alarm. I think if the central bank consistently auctions and comes up with a schedule, are we going to have it bi-weekly? Are we going to have it once every week? Then people can now plan and take that into consideration. And finally, I want to point out that in the Dutch auction, you have to fund your bid. That means you must put your Naira, you must put your money where your mouth is. Now, the Naira that has been sucked out, $872 million at times, whatever it is quite significant. What it has led to this morning is that there's a higher interest rates in the interbank market. And if the banks have to go and borrow from the central bank's standby facility window, they'll be borrowing at about 32%, and that is very expensive.
All right. So talking about commodities prices, I think we did try to bring that up. What's happening with that? We saw our correspondents reported in Port Harcourt that some markets, they noticed a hike in price in the midst of the protest. And I'm wondering, what has suddenly driven the price of the protest? But what's happening generally with commodities prices at this time?
Well, what we have seen, domestic commodity prices, our team went into the markets yesterday. And we saw something, well, first and foremost, we saw a 37% drop in the price of tomatoes. Why? It's down to 60,000 naira, and tomatoes was gold dust about, 2-3 weeks ago. So that's a major development. But the price of rice, coincidentally, went up by 3.66% to 85,000. This is happening at a time when the federal government is selling rice to public servants at 40,000, while the let me use the word parallel market for rice is at 85,000 naira. So what happens? You buy the civil servant will buy it at 40,000 and sell it at 85,000 naira. That's inefficient. The price of flour has gone up now. It's now 62,000 naira. The flour millers are saying, one, the new waiver has not kicked in. The ports have not been instructed. The customs is still charging them duty in spite of the fact that today is April 8th. So that's affected flour. Rice, as you know, is 85,000, and pepper has come down. So what we've seen is pepper down to 60K, and tomatoes also down. Pepper is down 57%, and tomatoes down 60%. I think that part of the problem is that these are perishables, and because of the protests and the movement, the restrictions of movement because of protests, those goods and the ones that are in the farms are not getting to the market, and the ones in the market are being sold off so that there's no. So what I think will happen is that in the next few days, the price of pepper and tomatoes will increase again, because as soon as people start bringing those goods to the market, so it will find a true value. Right now, it's the perishable value that we're seeing in the market.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, this still highlights the running problem or challenge of post-harvest losses, lack of preservation facilities and storages, and it doesn't seem we have a lot of attention in that area. So today it's tomatoes and pepper. They are cheaper, but I mean, in the next few days, as you said, especially when the harvest season is over, we see prices skyrocketing again.
But you see, another thing you must notice that we've seen the price of beans has stayed steadily higher than others, because one, beans is not as perishable as tomatoes. But we also saw an increase, a surge in the price of garri as well. So if you take those things which are dry products, if I may use the word, garri and beans, garri is more perishable than beans. The pest effect on beans is the only problem. So you find that beans are stayed steadily high, and it's a protein, it's an alternative protein source. Garri at the same time. So carrying out a market survey of prices at the time of protest and crisis will not give you a proper reading. So whatever reading we are getting for inflation projections now cannot be considered reliable, because this is an exceptional period. In another week, when by the end of this week, by Saturday, you will see that prices will have stabilized, petrol queues would have disappeared, and then we begin to have the efficient prices. But what we are telling Nigerians that this is what has happened. The effect of the protest on the economy as a whole, that we discussed last Tuesday, comes to almost $500 million a day if you are using 50% downtime parameters. So there is a cost of the protest. There is the seasonal effect of the protest on prices, and then we have the seasonality of the planting and harvest season. So it's difficult to make projections on price at this time, especially knowing very well that the imported products with duty-free commodities will get into the market any moment from now.
All right, so talking about that duty-free, Mr. Rewane, we have been told it to end, I think, is this September or November? Isn't it kind of risky, because at this time it means we might see excessive demand on those commodities, and working towards that end? I wonder what effect it will have afterwards, especially on the domestic producers.
Yeah, you see, the price of oil is also politically, it has geopolitical determinants that go into the price of oil. You can see that the price of oil went all the way down to 75. It's not about 78, but the EIU projects that the price of oil will stabilize at about $80 a barrel. What does $80 a barrel mean? It means that based on today's refining capacity and projections, we think that the actual retail price of petrol in the market will be anything about 1,400 naira. What is the average price today is about 700, and of course the people protesting are saying bring it down to what it was before, which is 200. That conversation has to be had, but as far as Nigeria is concerned, we have the Dangote refinery, which has the capacity to produce, and it should be coming into the market with PMS any moment from now. What the Dangote refinery does, it guarantees supply and quality, but what it does not do is to guarantee selling at the price below cost. Because selling at the price below cost is to guarantee losses and the demise of any investment. So that is the question. The question of how much of subsidies are you willing to bear, and how are you going to be using the revenue saved from the subsidy reduction to actually improve the lives of your citizens. That's the challenge before the government itself, and it's also a challenge by the governed to be realistic in making their demands. But having said that, this is a time for constructive engagement and discussion, so that we don't get to a situation where we just go into a downward spiral of political crisis, taking over economic fundamentals. I think that there will be some accommodation between all parties in the interest of the country and the economy. And when we see that, we will then begin to see that, one, we guarantee ourselves refined products and not just petrol, diesel, kerosene, aviation fuel. And the availability of this will actually reduce the constraints to output and begin to make prices drop in the medium term. So I think after this tough period in the next 1 week or two, things will stabilize and we'll start to address the fundamental issues. But it's important that the establishment and the government itself understand the pain of the people, so that we can begin to see an improvement in the atmosphere, so that it's too combative right now. And a combative environment is not good for business and good for investment.
All right, Mr. Bismarck Rewane, Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Let's take a break. When we come back, it's still on the economy. This time from the subnationals. What are they doing? What should they be doing? Join us for that conversation.